Lying in bed, my wife, she said, I'd love to hear the patter of tiny feet. To my surprise, as I looked in her eyes, she said, I'm gonna buy some sheep. Sheep? I said. Sheep, she said, gonna buy some sheep. Now the next wee job on hand is here, and it is to clean out the sheep pen here where everything lambed in, because the next job is shearing coming up and we need this house cleared for that. So there you are. That girl at the back there with the red dot in her rump, one nearest, she's got mastitis now. We just picked up on it yesterday when we were having a walk through. Lie down, Jay. Down. So you can see there her quarters swollen away up one side. She's had pain relief, and she's had one of these dry cow tube, or a lactating cow. It's really like a penicillin injected into her teeth. So not sure how that'll do. We'll see in a day or two.
We think this is an apple tree that has self-seeded, and the colour in the flower is just amazing.
Now this girl here went over on her side yesterday and couldn't get up. That's why her wool's so dirty. She was lying on a heap of poo. And this is the eyeliner woolly, which Barbara calls it because it's got like black eyeliner around its eyes. So she was on her side, and she just, if there's any little hollow in the ground at all and they get into it and they sort of roll on their side, there's that much wool on them they cannot get back up. And then the gases in their stomachs swells up, and if you don't catch them fairly quick when they're going over like that, you end up with a dead sheep, smothered. The gases rise in the stomach and swell, and they suffocate her. But she's enjoying a nice wee pick there. So that's why you need to be checking them 2 or 3 times a day, as often as you can. So we need to bring the lamb croup feeder up into the field of the sheep as well now. It's 10 o'clock tea time, and all food hygiene regulations are being observed here. Now I'm doing a little errand in Kirkcubbin here today. So this is the main street, a busy little place. And every time I drive past this building here, it prompts my memory. And this little building is H. Gilmore and Sons. Now, it was bought over by the Gilmores in the 1860s, but the amazing thing about this property is the windows at the front. Now, these windows are the original ones from that 1800s period. And the strange thing is that the glass is put in from the inside, not the outside. We know that the windows were manufactured by a company in Liverpool, and they were delivered to the little harbour here on a sail ship. Now, I know John, the owner of the pub here, and John lent me old ledgers which belonged to the pub. Now, a generation or two back, this was the agricultural centre of Kirkcubbin, to me, being a farmer anyway. There was stallions kept here, and if you were wanting a foal, you brought your horse in here, an agricultural Clydesdale breed, and you got a service fee and a bill. And there was bulls kept here. You could bring your cow in. Obviously, a generation or two back, people only had a cow or two, so it wasn't worth keeping a bull for that for yourself. So it was also a bakery. They sold all kinds of everything. I'm going to show you a little clip or two from some of the ledgers which we have got. John has given permission to do, and show you what people were buying, what people were selling. So this is the ledgers here that we are looking at, and this one that's open, this one goes roughly to starts at the 1920s. We can see here with this headed note paper that Gilmores and Sons were general produce and seed merchants, agents also for the Motor Union Insurance Company. Note the phone number at the top of the page there, telephone Kirkcubbin 225, just 3 digits. The local farmers were growing grass seed, barley, oats, turnips, and all that kind of stuff. So it was being brought in and shipped out from the little harbour in Kirkcubbin there. And Gilmores were suppliers of coal as well. So it was all types of agricultural and general everyday goods that people needed. Hardware goods as well. You'd have bricks, blocks, cement, timber. It was all coming in through this little harbour. And Gilmore's also owned a garage on the opposite side of the street. And here we have a couple of receipts from wartime, this would have been. And this one we're looking at now, that was for the repair of a Vauxhall car. And it was addressed to the aerodrome at Ballyhalbert. And here is a repair bill for John Finnegan of Cloughy for farm implements to build up a plough centre to hold points, so where the tip points go onto the tip of your plough. She must have been worn away there, so it says to dress it down as well, and also dismantling a trailer axle. But that's the ploughing. Now, I have relatives in Australia who worked to John Finnegan and made a fortune when they were there, and then went off to make another fortune in Australia. And they were young guys in those days, and boy, they were rough on machinery. So I would say this plough here was maybe something to do with Jim and Billy. Another side of the business was the letting of lands. There were auctioneers and land letting agents as well. So at the top of the page here you can see letting of lands, Reverend A. Neeson, Ballycranmore, November 1942. I'm assuming that this is the parochial grounds that's being let. There's 3 acres of second year hay, and it's £17. The next one down, 5 acres for potatoes or barley, It's let for £33, 10 shillings. 3 acres of old ley, that's ground that hasn't been ploughed for a long time, it was let for £37. 1 acre for oats, that was let for £5, so that's £5 an acre per annum. And here we have the sale of a yacht for £42 and 10 shillings in July the 6th, 1943. September the 18th, 1920, to the service of a cow, 3 shillings and 6pence. And February the 18th, to service of another red cow, 3 and 6. In April again, the service of another cow, 3 and 6. 3 shillings and 6pence. For that person there must have had 3 cows. So here's another little example of their land letting. This was out of a newspaper, obviously, but it's nice to note the town lands there. The top one's in a Shargy, 17 acres on the lands of Mr. R. McCracken to be let in lots on the premises on Monday, the October the 30th. For cropping and grazing, that was 17 acres. And at Ballycran, 17 acres of parochial lands to be let. The one below that, Ballyweird, 40 acres of lands, Mr. William Hughes, to be let in lots. For cropping and grazing as well. 33 acres at Tullymally. Now, did you know that in 1924, Kirkcubbin had a lawn tennis club? And they were getting staples and nails and half a dozen large staples, I think that is. And they've bought a one only Qualcast lawn mower with a box on it as well, and it was £2, £2 10 shillings. In 1923 there was a saddler called William Reid, and he was buying out of Gilmore's leather head collar, 4 shillings and 8pence, buckets and hemp, 2 shillings and 6pence, hemp and a washboard, I think that is for 1 and 6, a quarter of a ton of nuts down below that, a quarter of a ton of nuts, that would have been your coal. That's talking about not feed nuts. Let me see, what else do you see there? 2 things that you don't read about now, 2 balls of hemp and 11.5 pounds of brown strap leather. That would be for your bridles and stuff. Now, one thing that struck me when looking at these bills that were given out, invoices as such as we would call them, if you're looking down this page here, it says in the heavy black type or writing there, buy oats off paying 6 bags. It was £3 9 shillings. So he's brought 6 bags of oats in to pay off some of his bill. And that's very common in this book. So people were bringing in what they had, whether it was turnips, anything to seem to be trading to pay off some of their bill, along with cash as well. So here's a type of payment, and it looks very like something like a postal order to me, or almost like a cheque. In August 27, this was written for £50. On demand, I promise to pay Hugh Gilmore this amount for £50. And there's a witness written at the bottom as well. So here's someone here, and these are household items. They've bought flour at 3 shillings worth of flour, and they've bought baking soda, and it came to 4 shillings and 3pence. And there's something else in there, I can't just make it out. And then there's a globe, that'll be for your oil lamp. It was a shilling, and then there was rope at 3 shillings. Yeah, there's 4,100 weight off nuts. That'll be coal again So that's 2 tons, 100 weight, just over 2 tons, and it's £4.20. Here's another bill which has been paid. If you notice down, it says buy potatoes off the balance, £8.11 worth of potatoes he brought in, and the balance was £96.10. Then he brought wheat in at £14.08 worth. So it was a kind of a barter system. No credit cards there. If you look down on the third line here, it says to cash to pay a fine of £3. He must have been, I don't know what the crime was, but anyway, he was paying his fine. So the money was borrowed to pay that fine off Gilmore. So they were kind of money lenders into the bargain as well. And down at the bottom, if you see there, November the 1st, to a year's rent for a bog was 10 shillings. So it doesn't say what size the bog was, it just says for a bog. So it wouldn't have been that big now. Now for this story, I need to take you back over 200 years to the 26th of October, I think it was 1798. And in Kirkcubbin there was a young man called Archibald Warwick. And he was a member of the Presbyterian Church behind me here, and he was the equivalent of a lay preacher or a unqualified minister, but he was studying to be a Presbyterian minister. So, and Archibald Warwick, at that point in time, there was serious persecution, so there was on all sides, and I'll maybe do a little story on it someday, because it amazes me how nobody talks about these things. And it's an amazing story. Archibald Warwick was a member of the United Irishmen in Kirkcubbin here. And he was found guilty of that, and judgment was made on him to be hanged. And on the 27th of October, which was a Saturday, all the local folk were rounded up by the forces and brought into the square to watch this hanging to deter them. So what happened was the horse and cart came in with the victim on it. The soldiers had already the scaffolding made, and he was noose put around his neck. And it wasn't a drop like a hanging we get these days where the trapdoor goes and it's your neck's broken and it's instantaneous. It was drive the horse and cart away, and your life hung on for maybe half an hour. So it was a horrific day, and I'm looking around and there's not a marker or a thing about it. I don't know why it's not talked about. It's an amazing part of history. I had been reading a little snippet from a writer, and it says in 1939 there was a table in the manse over to my left here, and that table, when Archibald Warwick was taken down from the scaffold, he was laid out on that table, but it says it has gone missing, but it was there in 1939. But do you know what? Ivan has seen the table and handled it as well. So there you are. Now, I love picking up on these quaint stories, and here's another one. In 1793, a few years before the rebellion, there was a group of up to 60 folk in Kirkcubbin area here, formed a group, and they named themselves the Republican Brigade. Now, these group of 60 folk were all Presbyterians. How did that happen, or what was the reasoning behind that? That's what I like to look in and find out, but nobody wants to talk about it. Now, I was searching through the church records there to track the McFerrins down, because McFerrin is a funny name. And in farming terms, I think we jumped dike somewhere along the line. So I was looking into that, and the McFerrin's forefathers went to the little church here, so I was having a look at that. But I was looking down the church records and I said, I wonder what happened on the day of the Battle of Ballynahinch or the Battle of Saintfield. So I looked the church records up just to see if there was anything written in the diary, realising that if anybody said anything derogatory or anything about that period, you could be hung, shot or whatever. So, but the interesting little thing was a snippet on the 11th of June 1798. Now that was the day before the Battle of Ballynahinch, and it was called Pike Monday. The little excerpt, someone was getting baptized in the church here, and there's a little note in it, and it says it was on Pike Monday, so-called act of rebellion. And I was thinking in my mind, does that mean that those folk are saying so-called act of rebellion or so-called act of rebellion? The two sides of that story. And everything was very secretive. You had to keep your identity covered and where you thought on things, or life was nothing. The actual reason I'm in Kirkcubbin today is that Barbara has commissioned me to get my hair cut for him like the wild man of Borneo, she says. So here we go. Anybody doing anything with a frizz bat?
Yes, come on ahead, I'll sort you out.
My wife was threatening me that she was going to use the sheep shears on me, so I thought I'd better come and get it done properly.
No problem. So are you looking much off today then?
Oh, just tidy up, please.
Just a wee bit, yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Is that enough there?
Whoa, boys, I'm feeling a lot cooler after that.
Lying in bed, my wife, she said,